A Plea from the Far Middle. While this book was being written, America was deep in an era of moron populism and idiot partisanship. Our country was engaged in a sort of political Peloponnesian war. That is, we were in a long, confusing, tedious, foolish conflict that threatened to destroy the very idea of democracy and left ordinary commonsensical people feeling it's all Greek to me. Then, when this book was being edited and typeset, somebody ate an undercooked bat in a Wuhan wet market. Panic and pandemic ensued. The nation was brought to a stay-at-home standstill. Whether reasonably or not, no one is quite certain, and by whose authority, no one is quite sure. It's like being 16 again, a friend of mine said. Gas is cheap and I'm grounded. Then, with everyone cooped up, going crazy and going broke, some fuss budget with a loose mutt in Central Park calls 9/11. There's an African-American man threatening my life. She'd been admonished by a Harvard-educated birdwatcher, who, if video is anything to go by, is the very picture of a Harvard-educated birdwatcher. On the same day as that Central Park display of American inclusiveness, members of the Minneapolis police decided to take a knee on the neck of George Floyd. After nearly 9 minutes of suffocating in agony, Floyd died. He was accused of spending $20 in the form of a banknote that had no actual value. The U.S. Senate and House of Representatives are currently spending billions of dollars in the form of banknotes that have no actual value. Was Congress in danger of police bigotry and violence? No. All across the country, police bigotry and violence was employed on people protesting the bigotry and violence of the police. Chaos cried out its appeal. The thievish and the vandalistic are always with us. They're friends of chaos, and when their friend called, they came. The President of the United States urged peace, understanding, and unity. Pig's ass he did. The president waddled down to his bunker hidey hole under the White House and suggested that the U.S. military invade the country that they live in. Then the president talked trash and went to church. He could use it, attacking thousands of nonviolent demonstrators to get there. Not a very Christian way of going to church. And that's where things stood as this book made its socially distancing and peacefully protesting way to the printer. All of which is to say that my book looks back on an era of troubles that in retrospect seem like the good old days. And now I, who have covered politics and all its works and all its empty promises for half a century, and who had so very many things to say about them, am left mute. There are people who have the expertise necessary to explain, analyze, and make judicious commentary on the present and future effects of the coronavirus. I'm not one of them. And there are, I suppose, people endowed with the foresight to determine the outcome of the social upheavals accompanying the pandemic. I'm not one of them either. And the last thing the world needs at the moment is one more pundit who doesn't know what he's talking about. Journalists are supposed to provide answers, but all I've got is questions, starting with, isn't somebody supposed to be in charge? Too many of America's elected leaders have been acting as if the pandemic is a children's party game where they're all blindfolded and swinging sticks, except they're clobbering each other instead of the virus piñata. Actually, under a microscope, the coronavirus does look like it would make a swell papier-mâché piñata full of lethal pathogens. Let's leave the politicians to it while we quarantine ourselves for this fiesta. Which raises another question about this book itself. Is it now completely beside the point? Will American politics be fundamentally changed by the pandemic? Will Americans emerge from their grievous health crisis, their lockdown, isolation, economic collapse and material deprivation, will they emerge with a newly calm, pragmatic, and reasonable attitude toward our political system? Will our reawakened awareness of the systemic prejudice cause us to critically analyze and democratically restrain our civil institutions? Will we abandon the factional hysterics and histrionics of the early 21st century in favor of a polity based upon competence, civil discourse, and goodwill? Or will we revert to our petty disputes and stupid arguments? Indeed, having had time alone to dwell on our grievances and affronts, will we maybe even return to our spiteful quarreling with renewed vigor? It's often the way that human nature works. I'm betting that human nature will triumph over adversity and challenge, and I don't mean that in a good way.